Wednesday, and then I went to the end, it's like 35. And I'm like, went up yesterday, but well, yeah. I said, because that's awesome. They is not gonna be 31 cents.
You know.
On Appleton Avenue. Yeah.
That's where I went through there.
Patrick, I need just a minute, okay? I'm not having a speaker here. Hmm.
Highly sophisticated IT department over here.
I think we're working now.
Oh,
All the news.
Hey, Mike Grimm, can you hear us?
Mike Grimm's right there.
Oh, Mike Grimm is, oh, it must be
Cynthia.
Cynthia.
This is
Cynthia,
Mike
can you
Grimm.
hear me? Kim, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I cannot see anybody.
I'll continue to work on the video while we start the meeting then. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I would like to call the Village of Land and Plan Commission meeting to order for Thursday, November 21st, 2024 at 6:03 p.m. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Remove your headgear and silence your phones.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Grimm. Here. Lake.
Here.
Lavold.
Here.
Newman. Here. Janice. Absent. Payleitner. Absent. And Yates is present. Statement of public notice.
Been posted.
Thank you. So we have a short agenda tonight, but I do want to point out that we do have another meeting at 7 o'clock, so we'll try to stay on task if we can. Item number 5, discussion of possible approval of plan commission meetings from 9/26/24. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. Any other discussion? Mike, did you catch anything?
Just some word spelling there in the area number 8. Well, or it might have been like that, they stated there. It should be probably not there, maybe, well. That's about, 2 cents from the end, 3 cents from the end roughly. Think that there is wrong and maybe change a few words around, but otherwise that's about it. Just some graphic. They were just busy month for typing, so.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6, citizen comments. Do we have any citizen comments? Mr. Grimm, you had a couple?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment, you know, living in this town for a long, long time. The last time we had like a major fire in this town was a house over here, and I think we had to use. They had to use the pools to bring water to put that one out. So when they had that fire this past week down the road from my house, I was really impressed by the number of out of area fire departments that showed up. But one of the things I really noticed was they were able to drop a hose, hook it up to a hydrant and had water now. That really shows how much this town has changed in the 30 years, you know. So I'm glad to see that we kind of like have good policies in how we go forward in protecting this community.
Yeah, and credit to Sarah Nunn. I mean, I got a call. I was here pretty quickly after it started because I got a call from Sarah and she's like, she's our well operator. She's like, hey, do you have a fire in town? I'm like, I don't know. Why? She goes, well, you're pumping about 350 to 400 gallons per minute right now.
Well,
I was able to get on the phone with the chief, and even though he wasn't here, he reached out to the officer on duty, said we had a fire. Came down here, so.
yeah, because the one thing I noticed was I think they hooked up to 2 hydrants. And they hooked up to a third, but they didn't, they flushed that hydrant, hooked the hose up, never charged it back up. Cause I said to the wife, I says, don't do anything, we'll probably lose water, but we never did, so I mean, it was really something out. I'm looking forward to make sure that we get the other source in case.
Thank you. Did you have something else too, I think? Mr. Grimm? Did you have anything else or was that?
No, that's about it.
Okay. Any other citizen comments? All right, we'll move on then. Item number 7, discussion of possible approval of site plan amendment for Land and Tank, 20134 West Main Street, Landon, Wisconsin, 53046. I believe we have some engineer comments. We have a package from the applicant. The applicant is here. Ben, do you want to start us off, please?
I would like to, so I'm going to, I think the most concise way for me to step through this is to just follow my comments in the letter here. So first, item number 1, general comments. I've had a few conversations with the applicant. Edgar is here tonight. Business is apparently going well and they have a problem with needing more storage for their finished product before it gets shipped off site. So been trying to troubleshoot this problem for some time. The current thing on the agenda tonight here is a plan of operation site plan amendments. So it's lacking some engineering detail like drainage design, etc. But nonetheless, I want to step through my comments as it pertains to this. They want to expand in the southeast corner of the property, pave an additional 0.22 acre area that would stay within the setback limits, etc. The trick is that the area that they want to expand into right now is a berm that's landscapes. And there are requirements I'll get into for screening. So I'll have to consider some alternate form of screening. As far as zoning goes, real briefly, all the proposed use complies with the LI light industrial zoning. Outdoor storage, I'll just read the couple of ordinances here. First, section 7894A2 states all permitted material or products stored outside buildings must be behind the building setback line from the street and must be screened from view from any street in the village with solid fencing or screening approved by the Plan Commission. Section 7841-2 addresses undesirable storage and states that on no property where the storage of equipment, materials, temporary structures, supplies, or vehicles is otherwise permitted, shall such storage out of doors be so located or so arranged as to adversely affect the property values and general desirability of the neighborhood. Back to my comment, the outside storage is planned within the side and front setback areas. The current berm height ranges from 4 feet up to 10 feet at its tallest point, and that's relative to the existing parking lot elevation. Off-street parking and loading, just basically requires that all off-street parking and loading areas be paved. The map that was handed out today, I asked Edgar to prepare and bring to the meeting. And it shows the additional area that's been paved in the last couple of years since the last aerial imagery was provided. So it looks like there's still a portion of this site that is gravel and not paved. I believe the extent is for the new expansion area to be paved. My comment 5, the site grading plan should be submitted that demonstrates where water from the expanded paved area is going to drain. Note that village ordinances generally state that stormwater runoff cannot be directed to a neighboring property and cannot cause an adverse effect. Under 6, chapter 34 of stormwater management, the ordinance states that a stormwater management plan is required for any site that had more than 5 acres of total land disturbing activity ever, or more than 1 total acre of land disturbing activity after March 10th, 2003. Land disturbing activity that is less than half an acre is exempt. The plan commission can enforce chapter 34, which means stormwater management plan, if it feels that site-specific issues are a concern. Note that the DNR considers gravel to be impervious already, and therefore paving a pervious gravel area with asphalt does not increase the impervious area, and generally does not count as land disturbing activity. So that would apply to any of the paving that's happened in the last couple of years. The overall area of the entire parcel is approximately 4.4 acres. Therefore, they don't have to do stormwater management based on that 5 acre total land disturbing activity ever stipulation. But that said, I don't know what the history of this site development was between 2003 and when I started doing this in 2012. But if any land disturbing activity that happened in that time frame was less than 0.78 acres, then this additional 0.22 acres does not meet the applicability criteria. The majority of the site is located within the floodplain, and drainage generally sheet flows from east side toward the west into the creek. The proposed expansion area is currently out of the floodplain and located at a high point on the entire site. While approximately 90% or more of the entire site is impervious, there's little feasible opportunity to incorporate stormwater management features such as drainage swales or a retention pond. Any stormwater management features that would be identified in a stormwater management plan would likely have to include either underground or off-site regional features or credits towards such a off-site regional feature. The need for such a feature will not be known until DNR completes its Fox River total maximum daily load study that is ongoing. As previously stated, runoff cannot be directed toward a neighboring property. If runoff is directed toward Main Street, Waukesha County should be consulted regarding the capacity of its draining system to take on the expected flows. So if I can distill the drainage comments down, quite frankly, if this is allowed to go forward, nearly the entire site is going to end up being impervious. If this had happened in a modern day and age, they would have to do stormwater management, but because this is a older, previously developed property, most likely before 2003, they're exempt from the requirements. And just taking a look at the site, in my professional judgment and opinion, there's little opportunity for stormwater management on the site itself, barring having them do, as I said, some underground type thing. There's a chance that when DNR does the TMDL, that they might look at this and require the village to do something to make a reduction in stormwater pollutant loading or something that might originate from this site. But we don't know what that target or objective would be until DNR finalizes that study. So I think the timing of this is just such that it's really, really difficult to make any recommendations to them on stormwater other than take care of it on your own site. Don't let it cross into a neighbor's site. Jerry?
Ben, that was an existing stone quarry. And
Okay.
there's a lot of natural stone right there.
Sure.
In fact, when they built the last building, we had to do quite a bit of quarrying. There's about 5 to 6 feet of natural stone in that berm.
Oh, okay,
So it's gonna require stone removal too.
gotcha.
Yeah. But
Okay,
it's all impervious,
wow,
the whole place.
okay, good to know. Moving on to section 7 in my letter, it's mostly about landscaping and screening. So section 78-123 addresses site and structure design criteria for commercial, industrial, institutional, and residential development. Subsection 3C addresses parking lot landscaping and basically says that 10% of parking lot areas are supposed to be landscaped. I think there's an argument to be made here as to whether or not this is parking versus off-street loading versus storage and what the requirement is. Similarly, section 3F addresses landscape requirements for building foundations. It says you're supposed to have at least 10 shrubs or equivalent for every 100 feet of building foundation. And subsection 3B addresses retention of existing trees. Generally, the perimeter of the site maintains existing trees. However, the expanded parking lot area will have an impact on existing trees. Then we get to section 3D in this ordinance that addresses screening. The ordinance requires that a solid wall or fence or vegetative screen not less than 5 feet in height is required along property line adjacent to residential properties. Currently, the screening requirement appears to be accomplished with the berm and landscaping that will be eliminated with the proposed expanded parking area. A 6-foot tall solid privacy fence is proposed at the property lines adjacent to the residence. The plan commission should comment if this is acceptable and potentially consider consulting with the neighboring property owner, who I observe is here tonight. And then I also just want to point out concerning some of the other requirements to screen outdoor storage. The southern edge of the existing parking area encroaches on the bug line right of way. The potential to add landscape screening along the bug line should be or could be explored with the applicant and the county, though not explicitly required by ordinance. There's maybe an opportunity there to do something to potentially improve screening. The last section of my comments here, 8, is performance standards. Note that subsection 5, water quality protection states, and I'm going to summarize this, but I quoted the whole ordinance. You can't have any non-water substances running off of the property. So that's one thing that the stormwater management pond or similar feature would do is it would intercept any if there were any oil leaks or spills or anything like that, it would intercept that. Here on the site, there's not a ton of opportunity for that, given the sheet flow right to the creek. So my comment here at the bottom is the applicant should comment on its intent to comply with this ordinance, including if the stormwater pollution prevention plan or SWIP is required by DNR. So for industrial sites, DNR separately regulates them and will require site-specific plans in some cases. And basically my comment there is just asking if they have one, if DNR has required one for them. And that's something that is directly under the jurisdiction of DNR, not for the village. So that's my comments on this application and the relevant ordinances.
Did you want to comment, sir? You,
No.
I guess I would first open it up to any commission members, if you have comments or questions for Ben or the applicant.
Well, one of the things that I kind of like wanting to see more so than anything is, well, first off, thanks for the updated asphalt drawing. Yeah. But I would like to have seen a drawing showing where all this fencing is gonna be, running from where to where to where. And would there be fencing along the bud line? And if it is that in the right of way? Because I'm trying to see where the right of way is. It looks like the parking lot is in the bud line. Is that how I see it?
That's how you see it. I do want to point out on that map, it's in the original map that was included in the application. There's a dashed line and a solid line on that corner. It's real small print, but the solid line is the proposed fence.
It basically runs along the top of the berm and then back to the back of Bennett's home.
So which one is the dashes for?
I believe the dash is just the,
That's the setback.
yeah.
Okay, then it turns into a defense line then?
Yep.
Correct. He provided an example of the fence material, which looks like it's 6 foot tall, solid vinyl.
We have is it in our fencing ordinance restricts it to 6 feet? Could it be taller?
It could be, it's, the ordinance says it has to be a minimum of 5 feet for screening.
I prefer 8 feet.
I was gonna
It's what
say,
we normally we're doing in industrial areas.
I was gonna say, I think it should go up to at least 8 feet
Yeah, that's,
for more.
yeah, we were always kind of worried about 12 feet was a little bit too much. We thought 8 was good.
Well,
Great.
Randy, you had a comment?
Yeah, I'm Randy Bennett, 20076 West Main Street, right next to Lead and Pink. How tall will those tanks be at that area? Do we sit up the trailer, where on the ground or
Sitting on the ground. They could be as high as 10 feet.
10 feet? Yeah. Right.
Is it feasible to, if that is in fact stone, is it feasible to maybe back cut up to that line or just almost to that line and leave the top of the berm there and put the fence on that?
Be kind of hard to remove the stone though.
Well, it's gotta come out anyway.
Right, but it's gonna be under the berm. The berm isn't gonna stay there when you pull the stone. Cause it's in slabs or blocks.
There's no way to cut it, you're saying.
Well, you could saw it, sure. But then you're gonna need a restraint for the berm. Keep the soil from moving down in. Well, more solid fence.
I was just thinking that might be a way to get a little more natural height out of it, because those are pretty big tanks.
Yeah.
I've seen them a time or two.
And my next question would be is what is this fence material?
I think it's vinyl, right?
Yeah, it's final.
It's just a PVC fence at this point.
Yeah. Which I don't have a problem with, and that's actually nice and low maintenance, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know. Rot away, paint doesn't chip off, it's.
No, I think that's a good solution.
Randy's got a question.
It's
What color is that fence gonna be?
white, I assume.
I don't want white. Look at a white fence, be like a brown.
More natural.
Yeah, correct.
I don't know.
Can be.
Do you know if it's available in different colors?
I don't know what colors are available, but we definitely can look into that.
almond and white. It says here at the top of
Almond.
the spec sheet.
Almond's the color.
I just put in a vinyl fence and, for example, this design is Lexington, which probably only comes in white and almond, but there were other choices that I had that had a natural wood look. It was about 30% more expensive to have the cedar tone to it. But I know through Gardner Fence, which sells direct to installers, there were other, it was called Gardner Fence out of, Minnesota. I was real happy with the product, but you had to, like upgrade to a different type of fence to get that cedar look.
Still PVC.
Still PVC, yeah.
All I wanted to have access to his account electronically so I can transfer money into it. So
But I guess I would like to see some other color than white.
Yeah.
Darker color.
Yeah.
You know,
And almond, or if there's a different brand of fence, but.
and
Wood tone.
don't just stop at almond. I mean, you're doing a major redone to your property. So just don't stop, oh, we'll go almond. I want really some serious thought of other colors.
Did you, at the southern end of the fence line here, did you stop that just because there was some large trees there that you felt provided natural screening or?
Yeah, we're gonna disturb the berm on the street side. Just in between properties.
Yeah.
That's good.
So in my opinion, the most visible part of this site is, through the main entrance, drive as you're heading out of town, you see that, and that's along the bug line. Is this an opportunity to maybe do something along the bug line, that I don't mind seeing Land and Tank. I'm very proud of you being in the town, but I'm wondering if it's an opportunity to maybe build that rest stop that we've been talking about. Something that services the bug line and also would maybe provide a buffer between the industrial area and the recreation and the rest of the village. There was some land there that we had talked about, wasn't there, Patrick, that, there was a section of land there that could be,
No, there was over on HM Brandt, he had an
right?
area he was talking about, but then there's an area down further by, where Ron Cole bought the property from Jerry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's not much space here.
This is pretty tight.
Yeah, and it's county right away to the bug line, that's 60 foot wide there.
Yeah.
So you really get in almost up against their building.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure how this ever even got done.
Well, it was built long before the bug line when it was a railroad track
Yeah.
and they were loading stone out of there.
I'm sure they've got something in their deeds with the county on that piece of land.
Yeah.
And is the northern terminus of that fence, is that basically, or right behind the Bembenics, is that part of the Circle S storage?
Yeah. Yeah, that is.
Tax parcel?
Yep.
Yeah,
Doesn't look like they're going back that far, though. I mean, it looks like they're only going back,
to the back of the house.
10-15 feet, yeah, of their building that they have there.
Would you be able to go back to that? To the property line of the neighboring property?
With the fence, you're talking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's gonna add about another probably 50 feet.
I also do want to point out, Edgar might not be aware, but you can put the fence right on the lot line. The setback to the storage area is 10 feet.
Yeah.
And right now, he's got the fence shown on the setback line as opposed to on the property line.
Yes.
But that property line would be right in the lilacs and
Okay,
then out there goes the Milo natural buffer.
fair, yeah.
Yeah.
You plan on putting anything in that, setback area between the fence and the neighboring property, the 10-foot area? I mean, when you rip out the berm, obviously there's gonna be disturbance, are you gonna plant grass back in
Plant
there,
grass,
small
yeah.
bushes or something like that?
There was no landscaping other than grass.
My main two concerns were parents from Main Street and whether or not the Bembenics were satisfied with the solution. I think a higher fence is in order. That assures a little bit of extra protection, screening.
Extending it to the back of their property line and possibly not making it bright white.
Yeah, something other than white. Extended an additional 50 feet or so to the northwest. Are you gonna have to do any grading behind that existing structure as part of this process, do you know?
We were gonna try to avoid that, but if you want us to extend that fence, they may have to do something.
I mean, if you don't have to make significant changes back there, I mean, I don't know that that's.
They might be able to take that 50 feet and grade it up and maybe drop down to an equal height fence to finish that out. So in other words, they might only need a 4-foot fence or a 5-foot fence along there now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying is you bring the land up, but you bring the top of the fence down to actually existing.
Yeah,
It would be good though to leave the vegetation there for
Yeah.
the Randy,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Are those arborvitae that are back there?
I don't know what's on
Not
there.
everything.
No, I mean on their property,
Oh.
I think it's a little bit of everything.
Just a little bit of everything.
just natural growth.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the land and tank court site modification with an 8-foot fence other than white in color, so we want a darker color, and we want them to extend it about 50 feet to the northwest. Along the property line between them and the neighbor to the east.
Raven Road on this north south.
Yeah.
So it's north. Yeah, Emily is west. Yeah. So we go from here, there.
Slightly
Kind
northwest.
of in the westerly direction.
Yeah.
I
Right,
would,
We have a motion,
I would second Mr. Grimm's.
we have a
motion.
second, do we have any other discussion or comments? Yes, sir.
I would like to add a condition that, prior to paving, the Forestry submits for the correct, grading permit. Work with the building inspector on that, and that should include, the contour designs, basically the grading design. Demonstrate that, okay, they're not. Hopefully keeping this out of the floodplain, and just that plan will have to demonstrate that drainage is not being directed toward neighboring property.
And then what
What
about
about DNR?
the stormwater pollution prevention plan?
If you happen to have a SWIP, that'd be provided for review. No SWIP.
I don't think so.
I also just checked, a colleague sent me a website to the DNR database for those, and it looks like no business in Lannon has a SWIP.
I amend my motion to include Ben's comments.
Do we have an amended second?
I just want to ask.
One second, please. Do we have an amended
Yes, I
second?
will amend,
Okay,
or I will, second the amendment.
okay.
Was lighting addressed? Is there any issues with lighting? Are you change any lighting to
No.
affect the property?
That's good, that's good.
Okay, any other comments, questions? All those in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 8, discussion and possible action on setting a public hearing for Kimright Corporation, 19725 West Edgewood Drive, Atlanta, Wisconsin, 53046. I'll let, council give us an update on what brought us to this.
In August of 2022, Emmerite came before the village and asked for a conditional use permit that would basically exempt them from having to connect to municipal water except for domestic purposes, the toilets used by employees on premises. The understanding was that Emmerite was at that time using what I would call a shallow well to generate available water, which is used in the course of packaging products for vendors. The conditional use permit was quite detailed and made it clear that there were certain drop dead dates. And they were there primarily because the village was in the process of installing its own municipal system. And there was a representation that a deep well would be sunk to provide the necessary amount of water needed. I was contacted by council for Emmerite within the last month or so. And we discussed the situation generally. And I have advised the village that the conditional use permit expires of its own accord. There is explicit language that says that no further action needs to be taken by the village. I was informed in the course of those discussions that for reasons which I'm inferring were economic, the idea of installing a deep well had been dropped. And in consulting with the village engineer, I learned that no one had been informed about that decision. But there was a request to continue to operate. I advised the village that the village could entertain an application for another conditional use permit, but certain notification steps had to be followed. And at the time that the application for the conditional use permit was submitted, there was not an opportunity to have the public hearing, which is required prior to this evening. However, I recommended that the matter be put on for the scheduling of a public hearing so that there would be an exchange of information, because from my perspective, there was a serious lack of information on the part of the village with regards to the operations taking place. And my concerns were compounded by the fact that it was disclosed that the operator was contemplating selling. And I use that term broadly because I don't know any of the details of the sale. from the perspective of being the village attorney, I was very concerned that we had this business that basically was intending to continue to operate as before using a shallow well, when in fact we are in circuit court prosecuting residents who have not connected to the municipal water system. I have since had discussions with the village engineer, and I would ask him to supplement my comments. But I've inferred from the discussions that I've had with him that we don't know exactly the amount of water that is needed by Kemmerite for its operations. We don't know the number of people that are working there. We've been told that there is a shipment off-site of the water that is not packaged to a location in Milwaukee where it's disposed of. And I expressed concern that perhaps not all of that water is being captured and taken off premises and basically being introduced into the village's sewer system, which has adverse consequences for the village because there is the processing of that wastewater. And at the same time, even though the village does have a municipal system, this system, due to lack of funds to expand the system to cover the entire village, I was concerned that the continued and probably normal or aggressive use of the existing deep well would have an adverse impact on those residents who aren't able to hook up to municipal water. In addition, there's a regulation of high capacity wells by the DNR. And it's unclear to me what kind of monitoring actually takes place. If the village decides that there needs to be a connection to the municipal water system for this industrial use, there is also the question as to whether there is sufficient capacity within the existing system to meet the needs of the community and also accommodate this particular business. As you know, the village is currently in discussions with the village of Sussex to obtain additional water supply because the village has postponed an establishment of another municipal well, primarily because of the costs involved and the fact that we do have adequate for the current needs capacity to meet the municipal demands that we're experiencing. So those were some of the concerns that led to my suggesting, let's have a discussion and let's get it out there, because even though we may be talking to the current operator, the prospective purchaser may have ambitious plans to increase the production there, which would make sense, except that it would have perhaps some unintended consequences. Ben, can you supplement my comments with any thoughts that you have about our discussions?
Yep, certainly. So I also spoke with a representative from the DNR, Tony Ratarasan. He's Lannon's, the municipal water utilities assigned kind of field representative, so to speak, for the water utility. And I asked Tony a couple of questions, including one, who has jurisdiction over private high-capacity wells. He said that is ultimately DNR. We didn't get into discussions about, you know, if there's any regular monitorings or inspections or anything like that, but I asked what happens if it were to be found that a private high-capacity well were somehow impacting the capacity of a municipal well. He said that it's well established in Wisconsin that municipal wells are priority number one. And if it was found that a private capacity well like this was impacting that, that DNR has jurisdiction to put restrictions on the private high capacity well. Secondly, I talked to Tony about the position that land is in with its two current wells versus how much water it's selling. And Tony felt that, quite frankly, there could be, in the immediate time, until Lannon gets a third source of supply, depending on how much water Chemrite might use, it could be a greater risk to Lannon's system to add them as a connection for their production. They might use more water than what Lannon can reliably supply until there's a third source of supply. However, once there's a third source of supply, especially if that were an interconnect with Sussex, I think there'll be most likely plenty of capacity, but obviously we don't have the numbers to review any of that. So then we have to talk about, consider timing. Well, how long would it be until Lannon gets a third source? And I would speculate approximately 2 years. And I guess I'll add that Tony said that because Lannon is responsible to proving to Tony at DNR that it's operating the system responsibly. He said if Lannon were to add Chemrite's production use as a customer, he'd want to see the engineering calculations to basically prove that the municipal water utility has capacity, because he knows it probably doesn't. So it's like, if you were going to add them right now, you'd have to prove to me that it would work. So that's what DNR had to say about it.
Mr. Wood,
Okay.
can you verify the definition of a high capacity well is one of 100,000 gallons per day?
I don't know exactly. I think it's certain gallons per minute, but I could be wrong.
So I had a couple of questions that popped up, some of which are probably immaterial, some of which have been answered. But what I guess, and I appreciate the added information here and the explanations about kind of what you're trying to accomplish, but there were a couple of points that weren't clear to me either that maybe you can address when we get to you, but I don't understand the term variable water source. I don't know what that means, if you mean a variation in pressure or something along that nature. I didn't know if there were, if the wastewater truly is being taken to Milwaukee, as has been stated. Are there not any concerns about the Great Lakes compact water moving across the subcontinental divide that's coming out of the ground here and going over there? Because isn't that the whole reason we couldn't connect to Menominee Falls? And
Yeah, no, it's not applicable. You know, the source water that originates is outside of the Great Lakes Basin, and quite frankly, I don't know that DNR monitors it much for industrial waste processes anyways, but particularly water from outside the basin going in the basin, I don't think is a concern.
they're okay with that. They just don't want it going the other way.
Right.
Yeah, okay. All right, and there's a mention of over 60 individuals employed there. I'm just curious if there's any known number of Lannon residents that work there, or if they all commute from outside the area. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Ron Witt. I haven't met everyone on the commission and the planning commission, so bear with me. Listening to your questions, I found them very interesting. And I know your time is valuable tonight. With your permission, I have an agenda, a short agenda that will explain most of the questions you have. So with your permission, I can hand them out and then we can go through it. And at least you can see Chemright's position on the matter and what we think the situation is. Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
The question I have here though on the agenda is, it's for setting a public hearing.
Yeah.
Are we gonna be recommending the village board to set that hearing for us, or do we set the hearing?
You said it. It has to be before you. Right.
And how long for public hearings do we need?
15-day notice.
15-day notice?
On that subject, Hector, I've got a question, is why reinvent the wheel? Couldn't we just amend the existing conditional use and take the sunset rule out of it?
Well,
That's really the only contention. is the
Or
sunset.
move it 2 years,
Yeah.
because if the conditional use, all you're gonna do is, okay, everything stays as the condition, but
Right.
it gets moved for 2 years.
Right,
Cause that's basically, they're up against the deadline of basically the 15th of December.
right.
right. I did discuss that with Mr. Air, who represents,
And Mr.
the firm. And, my response was, I acknowledge that there's language about amending it, but literally, a lot of water has gone over the dam in the 2 years. And whatever record was made before is unreproducible at this point, other than the conditional use permit. And we needed to create a record, because in my layman's point of view, there could be some serious adverse consequences for the village and likewise for the applicant. So my approach is, let's do it by the book. In the conversations that I had, nobody has suggested as to why we are going through this fire drill at this point in time. And it was quite clear, because when Mr. Witt was before the village, he appeared more than once, and there were some very extensive discussions, because the village at that time desired greatly to promote the business and advance the business, and then radio silence for 2 years from the standpoint of the village.
Yeah, I remember this, a couple of years back, that we went through the deep well and all that, because they were gonna be putting in the deep well. But they had to make sure that currently the existing facilities in the building, non-production area, had to be hooked to the city, to the village. As whereas production water was gonna be deep well, so.
They did connect.
If I can make one comment, I think the original conditional use application, Chemrite, the deep well was gonna be a second source. Chemrite was gonna keep the existing well and put in a deep well and have 2 sources of water. It's not that the deep well was gonna replace the existing well. It was gonna be a second source of water that we needed in case there was ever a problem. That was it, and I don't think that was clear from what council
No,
had said.
you could be right. You see, you just made my point. There is no record we can look back to. Mr. Grimm has a very, very good memory, and the details of this process was drawn out over a period of time. Hence, the need to make a new record. I think that if the village is inclined to grant some kind of a special permit to allow production to continue, there's got to be a justification, and I have not done any research in that regard. I do not recommend that you merely just amend the time period because then you're basically setting up a set of conditions that aren't supported by any practice.
So it would be all right then to say, let's set a public hearing date of say December 19th, Thursday. And then have action, you know, the plan commission afterwards, because I think it has to go to the village board from our action to the village board. But they're blessing or approval. And I would think, you know, because, you know, our December plan commission meeting would be like the day after Christmas, we usually don't have. So I think the 19th, I don't think there'd be any reason why we couldn't do it on the 19th, even though the existing cup was expired, but I don't think we're gonna run out and wanna put a well in between the 15th and the 19th.
Right, and I think for me, the biggest thing is you know, they've outlined in the handout that was provided here that it appears, or they claim their daily demand is closer to 40,000 gallons rather than the 9 to 18 that I think I recall seeing in an earlier document.
That's correct. We can't.
You know, so I don't know if there's any documentation to substantiate that or to,
And I
but
think-
we can't,
I
we
think-
clearly can't meet
And I think it'd give us
that.
more time to research too, because, you know, you're correct. I mean, it could have been, you know, the D plus the shop. I don't, you know, it's like, there's a lot of stuff that happened, you know, the last 20 years in this town.
I was just, I think the originals, the conditional use permit that's in effect now indicates that both wells, that we didn't have to
But if you try
abandon
to,
the other
try to
well.
go back and find the minutes, you know, I think, you know, we'd have to see our minutes too and see what our minutes all said. Yeah.
But it's kind of a moot point, because we're not gonna provide that kind of gallonage for several years.
Yeah.
If I could,
Yes,
I can understand the village's concerns. And as some of you know, we've been in the village now for 49 years. So
Yeah.
that well's been operating for 49 years. I want that to sink in, 49 years with this kind of delivery. We have monitored standpipe in the well. The water levels in the well seems to be producing beautifully at this point. And so Chemrite is just as concerned, I think, as the village would be about the supply of water. Our business is about water. We're a liquid contract packer. We're in business one day without water, inflow or outflow. The commitment, as you know, when I first came here, we've had a very good relationship with Lannon, and I've got a fondness for the village. It is not the most ideal site for our kind of production, but we've worked together and yeah, I've been very satisfied with being a resident of Lannon for my business. The water operation, and that's what I wanted to share with you on the background. Keep in mind that the figures that I've got before you, if someone needs to see, these aren't just things that I drew up. You're looking at the person that put this in front of you. We do monitor our daily usage through our RO system and others. So we produce a pretty sophisticated operation, to be honest. As you'll see, we produce reverse osmosis water that is UPS 61 capable. That's not your average stuff. The systems that we built originally to produce that quality of water that our customer needs has to have a consistent source of water in 4 areas. And I tried to outline that. So not to jump too far ahead, but if you just briefly take a look at the background, Chemrite has fallen on somewhat harder times. And I think it answers some of your questions about this in and out over the last couple of years and what's happened. And I'm not here to make excuses, but to let you understand, we're currently at 28% of our 8-hour production capacity. We were at 12 to 16 hours when we first started talking to you guys about this. The economy, COVID, whatnot, has absolutely decimated our customers. We haven't lost any customers. But as a consumer, I'm sure we'd all agree. You gotta pay $5 for a gallon of gas, you're not gonna buy a $25 bottle of polish. The Chemrite gets 25 cents to produce for our customer. That's what happened. And until the economy begins to recover in the consumer sector, my job as the CEO of Chemrite is to keep us together and keep my people employed, which we've been able to do. And it's been a struggle. It's really been a struggle. And I'm not here to complain. I'm just saying that was beyond Chemrite's control. Nobody asked me how to run the economy, and nobody asked me to make the moves that have been made that led to this disaster, but it's upon us. And it's a big factor, and I wanted to make sure you understood that. The gallonage that you see now, if we were to run, we have 5 liquid fill lines and we have a tube filling operation as well. In the 5 liquid lines, if they were to just run 8-hour day, run quads shifts, we can run 4, 8, 12, or 16 hours, depending on the burst needs of our customer. And that's another thing you keep in mind. In the business we're in, we're sort of like you go to the grocery store. You don't worry about how it gets on the shelf. You just expect it to be there when you need it, correct? And to hold your inventories tight. That's what works for us. So we'll get these sudden burst demands for production. And I wanted to let you understand that our well has delivered this type of quantity of production as far back as 2017 through 2019. I reviewed all those draws. And so you can pretty much be comfortable that the numbers I fit in front of you are realistic. And I agree with the board that you want to think about this, because just recently, I have to admit this, I apologize. As the CEO of the company, I had no idea that Atlanta would be interested in giving us water. I always was under the impression that the board couldn't do it and wasn't interested in doing it. So you certainly could be a consideration from Chemrite's standpoint and my standpoint if you want to be. So in this case, then, the current well gives 4 positive knowns that'll keep us in business: quantity, quality, cost, and flow rate. Our systems were designed, custom built. Our RO system that sits in that building, there's only 2 of them in the world. One's in Bombay, India, and one's in Atlanta. And it produces the purest water on the face of the earth. When our water hits the air in our building, it's less pure than comes out of that RO still. I was fiercely proud of that. And the Village Fathers have always worked with Chemrite to the best of their ability. And I've always appreciated that. And so it's a complex thing. It really is. And there was no attempt to cover anything up from the village board or to try to hide anything. I can attest that as the CEO of the company and the owner of the company. When the village decided to allow the quarries to go deeper, that's when this issue actually hit Chemrite's desk. I understand it. The quarries were here before Chemrite was, right? There's a long history with the village, and that's up to the Village Fathers to determine those things. I'm not making that decision for you. But what happened was that's when Chemrite had to be concerned as a corporation, because allowing the quarry to go deeper may have impacted our water delivery. And neither the village nor Chemrite wants to be in a situation, and I certainly don't, where we're arguing about who owes what money. If we're down on water, $30,000 to $40,000 a day is going to be lost. We don't want to face that. I have contracts with my customers. They're not going to take kindly to production just stopping. So again, that should not be your problem. I don't want it to be the village's problem. I just want you to understand that I'm kind of in the middle of this myself. Yes, sir.
You just mentioned that you were very concerned about the quarry being able to go deeper.
Yeah.
What have you resolved in that regard? What did you accomplish? Did you talk to them?
The quarries themselves?
Yes.
We had contact with one quarry, did we not?
Yeah. we had contact and they don't know. No one knows if it's gonna fracture or not. It's, Hemorrhoid is always, even before the water, the municipal, water was installed, Ron's always been concerned about having a second source.
Yeah.
It just came to light about the quarries.
My
if they would go
question
deeper.
is, did you reach some kind of a resolution with the quarry?
No,
No?
that they would
Okay.
go deeper, no.
Okay,
So I think for the sake of our subsequent meeting here, which is already late getting started, then I appreciate you
And I apologize for that.
providing so much detail here and your willingness to come forward with this stuff. I think we have the general sentiment, I think here is to try to find a way to work together to resolve this. I think we just need to set the wheels in motion and then work through accomplishing the goals of council in terms of maybe filling some gaps in terms of the plan, the knowledge. I think it would be good for us to have a better understanding of the reality of a potential sale and how that might impact that use. That should be taken into consideration as well.
Can I make a motion?
You certainly can.
I would make a motion that we change the sunset date on the current conditional use permit from December 15, 2024 to December 15th, 2026.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I have a question. It's not how it's agendized. We can only set a public hearing.
But if we change the sunset date, we don't need a public hearing.
Let's say Hector,
you'd be going beyond the agenda. You're taking action beyond just setting a hearing date.
But we set a hearing date for 2026.
Well, you can't do that, but it would not be in the best interest of its business because by the very language of the conditional use permit, it expired
So,
December 1.
so I would like to make a motion. That we set a public hearing for December 19th, 2024 at 6:30 with the follow, after the public hearing, the discussion of possible action recommendations.
We could do a joint meeting then, so we sure. Do we need to make any provisions that allow them to continue to
Can we get a
operate
second
that?
first? We get a second?
Oh, yeah, we should.
I will second that,
Thank you.
motion.
Okay,
All right, we have a motion, and a second. Do we need to acknowledge any conditions that allows the continued operation so as to not interrupt their production?
You'd be taking action that is
Okay.
beyond their, they can at their own peril do
Sure.
whatever they think is in their best interests.
Okay.
Uh,
So we have a motion and a second then to schedule a public hearing for 12/19 at 6:30 PM. That would be presumably a joint
The village.
village board and planning commission meeting so that we can take any possible action. Any other discussion?
6
If-
make more sense.
If I can make one comment, if there are questions that need to be answered and someone provide us with those questions in between, then we will be glad to address those questions, whether
Right.
from you, Ben, or
Yeah,
Hector.
we'll reach
That
out.
would,
to
that would
you.
be, that would,
Yeah.
would be great.
Yeah.
We'd
They,
love to
they
answer.
would be, an extension of the comments that I made to you.
Yeah.
Your buyer, what are the plans? Whatever. Those
What-
kinds of.
When I talked to you, we had discussed with the buyer if we could disclose or not, but I think we're fine now. We have discussed things with them and so.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion by the commission?
They're proposing an amended time to 6 PM. Is there a reason that we picked 6:30? Doesn't matter to me, I can make either.
Don't matter to me, I just throw a number out there. I mean, some people didn't come in till 6:30. I thought maybe they needed to half hour. You know.
6 P.M. work for everybody?
I amended to 6 o'clock.
Okay.
4 years, I said.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you.
Like I was.
Thank you.